it is Friday, which means it is menu day, and we have a super awesome, easy to do, super yummy flavors on a budget meal plan that you can recreate at home. Now, I know I see all these meal plans that say, oh, I only spent $32 this week, but then you find out that everything on their list they already had at home. Well, we don't do that. We do an absolute full menu that you can recreate at home, shopping at Walmart or really any store that you like. And you don't have to have already had a fully stocked kitchen. So I do want to mention that I am still a little snuffleupagus because of all the pollen and stuff. So please forgive me for my sounding this week. And let's take a look at this menu. Now, I know that there is a lot of scary news out there about tariffs and prices being affected, especially when it comes to groceries. But I just want to tell you that you can eat really, really well on a low budget. But what we're going to do is we're going to go back to some basics. We're going to go simple. And simple doesn't have to mean yucky. Simple can be super yummy. And in fact, we're going to show you some super simple dishes this week. And our total came out to really, really low. And it's all available at Walmart. So let's take a look at our grocery list. You're going to notice two things right off the bat. The list is a little small. It's only, I think, 27 items. Normally, we're closer to about 35. And you're going to notice our total is actually pretty low. It was only $54.45. And here's the part that might surprise you. These prices are from California. Yeah, this is the Walmart Supercenter near Auburn, California. And I know all you ever hear about is that grocery prices are so crazy and insane in California. But I'm going to show you 6 dinners that you can make that are yummy, that are simple, that are easy to make, and aren't going to cost a fortune here. But before you go shopping, make sure that you check your pantry, your fridge, and your freezer because odds are good you may have some of these items. Now, down below in the description, I'm going to have 2 links. The first one goes to my Walmart grocery list. You can see exactly what I picked out and the prices. And if you change the zip code to your area, you can get your local prices. Now, there's a caveat there because most Walmart stores carry the same products, but sometimes they're different brand names. So specifically the chicken leg quarters, it's a 10-pound bag. In your area, it may have a different brand. So if you go to the list and it has like a crazy wackadoodle price, just search for that item because odds are good there's a local or regional brand that's cheaper. Sometimes you'll see an item just have a crazy price because it's regional. No big deal. Second thing is there's a link to my website where you can go and you can get a free, completely free PDF. It has the shopping list and all of the recipes. So boom, bang, you have a meal plan made for you. You don't have to do anything except place a pickup order and boom, you're done. So I will say that normally we always assume that you have your preferred cooking oil and your favorite seasonings. This week, we are going to need just a little tiny bit of mayonnaise and we're going to have a salad. So I hope that you have some salad dressing. But you know what? We have almost an extra $5 this week. You could easily pick up mayonnaise or salad dressing if you need it. So let's get into the recipes this week. The first recipe is really super simple. We're going to do a roasted ranch chicken. Now, these bags of chicken leg quarters, they come in like a 10-pound bag. We're going to use about half. I would say most of the time there's between 8 to 10 legs in a bag. So what I would do is I would just grab like 4 or 5 of the legs. I pat them dry and then I'm just going to season them. I really like ranch seasoning, but you know what? If you're not a fan of ranch seasoning, you could easily use whatever you like. I have done just like a simple poultry seasoning. You could do like a lemon pepper or garlic and herb, really whatever spices sound good. Personally, if you have not been hanging out in your spice cabinet too long, I would go and look for the spices that are in the very, very back and start using some of those up. Now, we're also going to do some roasted potatoes and carrots. Now, for the potatoes, depending on the size, I'm typically going to cut them up into like pretty large chunks. I would say about an inch, inch and a half. And then I just put them in a big bowl with my baby carrots. I drizzle them with a little bit of oil and then whatever my favorite seasonings. Now, I tend to go a little bit, more seasoning on the chicken as far as like a distinct flavor profile, whereas on the potatoes and the carrots, I tend to go simple. So I'm talking like salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, stuff like that. Then, now, because depending on how big of a sheet pan you have, I typically use like 2 cookie sheets, and I will put my chicken on one cookie sheet and then my potatoes and my carrots on the other. I go ahead and put both in the oven, and then I just let that cook. It's typically going to take about 45 to 60 minutes. This is going to depend on the size of your potatoes and the size of your chicken. But by keeping them on separate pans, if needed, I could always pull the chicken or pull the potatoes early. So I just kind of keep an eye on this. Now, what's great about this is after you're done cooking your chicken, you can easily pull all the meat off the chicken, save your bones. These bones can easily be put into a crock pot or a stock pot, and you can make your own chicken broth. That's a super simple way. Chicken broth actually costs a decent amount of money, but you can make a huge batch. I like to freeze it in ice cube trays, and then I have chicken broth for any recipe that I need in the future. So this one, it's super simple, and there's lots of ways that you can kind of mix and match this when it comes to flavor. Plus, you're going to have a good amount of leftovers for lunch or to use towards another meal. Our next dinner, oh my gosh, this is so good. So I just tried this recipe a few days ago, and it turned out fabulous. And I'm already thinking of different ways that I can mix and match this and make it into something else. So we're going to make what sounds kind of fancy bacon and tomato tarts with a salad. But in reality, this could not be simpler. We're going to take a pack of these biscuits. It's a 10 count. All I did was separate out all the biscuits, use my fingers, and just push them into the bottom of regular size muffin cups that I had greased. In a little bowl, I combined 1 Roma tomato, some shredded cheese, whatever seasonings you like. I went with Italian, and then some cooked bacon and just a little bit of mayonnaise. The mayonnaise just acts as kind of like a binder. And then I took a spoon and I just put this mixture on top of each of these little biscuit cups and then baked it for about 10 to 13 minutes. And it was golden brown, and it was, oh my gosh, good. Now, the way that my brain works is I'm already thinking, what could I switch this around with? Next time, I'm going to use maybe some canned chicken or some shredded cooked chicken. We're probably going to have a good amount of chicken this week. You could easily do that to add a little bit different. If you like a little spice, you could add some jalapenos in there. There's so much you could do there. You could even add maybe some caramelized onions in here. There's just so much. And we're going to do just a basic salad. We're going to do the spinach. We've got some cheese. We are going to have one of those big English cucumbers, and I would use about half for this salad. And it's just a nice, simple, easy, quick spring dinner that's super, super yummy. So lots of options here. Our next dinner is going to be a Mediterranean turkey bowl. It's part rice bowl, part salad bowl, if you will. Now, one of the great things that I love about springtime is you start to get those really good tomatoes. So whether you use Roma tomatoes or any other tomatoes, just depends on what's on sale. We're going to go ahead and dice up some tomatoes, dice up the other half of the cucumber, and then we're going to take a can of chickpeas, and I make sure that I rinse them and drain them just because that bean juice isn't always tasty. And then we're going to mix that with some Italian dressing. I said 1/4 cup, but really you just don't want to drown it. You want to make sure that everything is just, pretty well incorporated. And then you put that in the fridge. Let that chill all together. It's almost like a marinated salad. Then when it's time for dinner, we're going to make some basic white rice. We're going to go ahead and cook up our ground turkey. Now, for the seasonings on this, I tend to go with like an Italian seasoning. I did at one time have like a Greek seasoning, but it's kind of hard to find. And honestly, Italian and Greek seasoning are very close and similar. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and wash and chop some fresh spinach and some feta cheese. Now, I really like bowls simply for the fact that you can kind of mix and match which items that you like. So we'll start that bowl with some white rice at the bottom, top it off with some of our seasoned ground turkey, and then we'll do that tomato, cucumber, chickpea salad, and then with some fresh spinach, and then top it off with some feta cheese. Oh my gosh. And then if you really kind of going more towards a salad versus a rice bowl, you can easily add a little bit more Italian dressing there. And it's just, oh my gosh, surprisingly filling. And it just kind of tastes like fresh and springy. So this is definitely one of those that I absolutely love. Now, I live in the South, and spring is kind of the start of like barbecue and cookout season. So it's just pretty common that we're going to have barbecue chicken a lot. Now, I love these leg quarters because they're super simple. You just pat them dry, season them well, and then you just throw them on the grill. Now, I've done these on the regular grill outside, as well as like we have one of those flat top, it's like a very large Foreman style grill. Both of them work. Now, depending on the size of your chicken quarters will really kind of depend on the length of time. So my husband usually does the grilling part because that's kind of his domain. So while he's grilling, what I'm doing is I'm making a super simple mac and cheese. And I don't want you to get scared when you see that it's going to involve cottage cheese. I know that everybody wants to make cottage cheese into something else, but I just happen to really like cottage cheese. And this is one of those super simple mac and cheeses that doesn't require a whole bunch of work. And it's actually not that expensive, because if you actually look at like traditional baked mac and cheese, a lot of times they have heavy cream, they have lots of milk. It just gets very expensive. But I have found that this works really, really well. Now, I will say that if you do not like the texture of cottage cheese, you could easily put it in a food processor or a blender and make it smooth, and then you don't have that issue. So we're going to cook that macaroni, and then we're going to mix together our cottage cheese. We're going to use a total of 2 cups of shredded cheddar, and I use about a little over a cup to begin with. And then my sour cream, mix it all together, add your favorite seasonings. I usually go with like a garlic and herb blend, definitely add some like garlic powder and salt and pepper, mix it all together, put it into a greased pan, and then top it with the rest of the shredded cheddar, and then bake it. I mean, seriously, you cannot get any more simple, and it is so yummy. Now, if you just happen to be one of those people that loves extra protein, that extra cottage cheese will add a ton of protein as well. And honestly, this comes down to the seasoning. To me, you can't really taste the cottage cheese part, but you can taste the seasoning. So whatever you like in your mac and cheese, make sure to include this one as well. We're just going to do some simple green beans as the side dish here. Now, I will note that some people, they like to go ahead and coat their chicken with barbecue sauce before they put it on the grill. I am not a big fan of this because the barbecue sauce has a lot of sugar and it does tend to almost get like burnt. Some people say caramelized, but I don't particularly care for that flavor. So I like to cook the chicken on the grill until it's mostly done and then top it with the barbecue sauce. Now, one of the tricks with grilling though is you have to let your meat rest. So you're cooking it on the grill. Check the temperature. Once the thermometer says it's 165 degrees, remove the chicken from the grill, let it sit on a plate for like 10 to 15 minutes. This is going to allow that carryover cooking, and it's also going to keep your chicken nice and moist. If you pull it and you immediately try to serve it, that's when you get kind of like dry chicken. So maybe one of these days we'll do a video where we actually grill so you can see what I mean. But super simple, and obviously you can mix and match this, and depending on what barbecue sauce really kind of changes your flavor. So if you already have a barbecue sauce in your fridge, definitely use that, but maybe this is time to experiment and try a new barbecue sauce flavor. Now, if you've been hanging out on our Facebook page, you will kind of get this reference, but we are going to have some green orbs. Okay. My kids absolutely love peas, whether they're frozen or just canned peas. They just like them. And we also had grapes. So we just had green balls all week long, but no biggie. This is one of those super basic pastas, and my kids love it. This could not be any more simple. We're going to do any pasta you like. We already had elbow pasta on the list, so might as well use it. But you could also use like rotini or penne or any pasta that you like. We're going to start with that bacon. We go ahead and we cook it until it's crispy. We remove it from the pan. I like to leave about 2 tablespoons worth of the grease in the pan. And then I'm going to add in my onion and my frozen peas and basically a little bit of that pasta water. So while you're cooking your pasta and it's tender and you're about to drain it, go ahead and save about a cup. Now, I always save a cup, even though I might only use half a cup, because you kind of can't get more pasta water once you've sent it down the drain. So I just save like a good amount and then use it as needed. And then we're going to add our pasta back to the pan. And then we're going to add whatever shredded cheese you like. I really like this Monterey Jack, and I also like not mozzarella, but like a white cheddar. Now, you could easily use mozzarella if you like. When I say shredded cheese, you can really use whatever you have or whatever sounds good. Totally fine. Now, this is one of those that occasionally I will find like discounted mushrooms or mushrooms on sale, and that's really good to add to this. You're going to have a good amount of chicken this week, so you could easily add chicken to this. This is just one of those really good base recipes that tastes completely fine by itself, but there's always room where you can add more to it. And then if you hadn't noticed, whenever we have pasta, I am a huge fan of having a piece of just butter bread. It's, that's my comfort food. I love it. There's just something about, being able to, clean your plate with that bread. If I'm wrong, oh well. Now, we're going to end this week with another bowl, but it's going to be a breakfast sausage bowl. I know that the price of eggs is still really high, and you can still do like a breakfast for dinner situation and skip the eggs. So we're going to start with a couple potatoes. I like to go ahead and chop them up fairly small, and then we add some oil to a pan, and we're going to cook those potatoes. Think of it more of like a home fry situation. I know some people call them hash browns, but we're going to do that. We're going to add an onion. We're going to cook it some more until they're completely tender. And while that's cooking, we're going to go ahead and cook off our breakfast sausage. Now, it came out much cheaper to go ahead and just get a pack of this country gravy, which seems kind of silly because we are going to be cooking breakfast sausage. So if you want to make your own breakfast gravy using sausage, totally fine. I just think that it was a little bit cheaper to go this route because then I didn't have to buy flour or milk or anything else as far as that. So I'll leave that one up to you. Now, one thing that I do like about bowls is you can really kind of mix and match. So my kids would have potatoes, we would top it with some cheese, they would have some sausage all mixed together. And then to kind of break up that kind of heavy breakfast taste, we're going to serve this with some strawberries. It's just one of those where it's almost like a palate cleanser. It just makes it to where it's not as heavy. And we are going to have some bread. So you could easily make some toast, grab some butter, grab some jelly, and this is actually a very, very filling meal. So, and there's lots of room here. Maybe you do have some eggs and you want to add some fried eggs or some scrambled eggs. Totally possible. So, now, even though that last dinner did include strawberries, I wanted to show you some low-cost fruit options this week at Walmart. Now, I will say that there are some items that are in the produce department for fruit that I really enjoy getting at Walmart. One of those is kiwis. They have hands down the best prices. Their prices for things like pineapple and their oranges and apples have been relatively good. But I have noticed at my local stores that berries, grapes, stuff like that have tend to be cheaper. So this is one of those, once again, that I would always check your local weekly ads to see who has the best prices on fruit. But I have noticed that by adding fruit to my dinners, not only does it make my kids more happy to want to eat it because they love fruit, but it also makes me feel more full. And I've mentioned this 1,000 times, but the average American adult does not eat enough fruit. So why not just add a little to your plate every night and boom, you get your daily fruit. Now, I want to apologize again because last week I was sick. You can kind of hear it in my voice, and I was not able to come up with a meal plan. But on my website, you can actually go back and see 58 weeks of meal plans. They all include a Walmart list, a free PDF. There's so many options. And as we're coming up into spring and summertime, we also have some plans that require no heat, meaning that if you don't want to use your oven, that's totally fine. You can still make dinner without your oven. So don't forget to check that out. And I hope you all have a wonderful week and come back and see us next week so we can do some more meal plans. Let me know down below if you're going to try any recipes this week. And also don't forget to tell me how much the total came out at your local Walmart. I'll see y'all later. Bye.